Hey YouTube, welcome back to another tutorial in my LeetCode series. In this one, I'm going to teach you how to solve the merge sorted array problem. So I'm going to start off by reading this problem and then I'm going to get into solving it. So you are given two integer arrays nums1 and nums2 sorted in non-decreasing order, and two integers m and n, representing the number of elements in nums1 and nums2 respectively. Merge nums1 and nums2 into a single array sorted in non-decreasing order. The final array should not be returned by the function, but instead stored inside the array nums1. To accomplish this, nums1 has a length of m plus n, where the first m elements denote the elements that should be merged, and the last n elements are set to 0 and should be ignored. Nums2 has a length of n. Alright, so that was a lot, and I'm just going to summarize that really quickly. So we have two arrays, nums1 right here, and nums2 right here. Nums1 is going to store everything, so it's going to store what's already in nums1 with a combination of what's in nums2, but it's going to be sorted in non-decreasing order. M is going to be the length of the unique elements in nums1, so the numbers which aren't 0, and n is going to be the amount of elements in nums2. So let's look at some of the examples here. So if we have nums1 equal to 1, 2, 3, 0, 0, 0, m equals 3, nums equals 2, 5, 6, and n equals 3. Basically what it's saying here is m is equal 3 because we have 3 unique values in nums1. N is equal 3 because we have 3 values in nums2. And we need to return something like this in nums1. So we need to update nums1 to look like this, and we do that by merging the two arrays. Let's look at another example. We have nums1 right here equal to 1, which means m is going to be 1, and nums2 is empty, so it's telling us about this empty case that we can have. And in the empty case, we basically just leave the nums1 array as is, and we output 1. And then lastly, it's showing us what could happen if nums1 is practically empty. It's just going to have a 0 in it. M is going to be equal to 0 because there's 0 unique elements. And nums2 is equal to 1. When we merge them, we just get 1. Alright, so to solve this problem, I'm going to declare 3 different integers. The first integer is going to be called I, and I'm going to set that equal to m minus 1. The second integer is going to be j, and I'm going to set that to n minus 1. And the third integer is going to be k, and I'm going to set that to m plus n minus 1. And let me explain what these 3 integers are. This integer is going to point to the end of the unique values in nums1. And I shouldn't call them unique because technically you can have multiple of the same value, but let's just say the values in nums1. This is going to point to the end of the values in nums2, and this is going to point to the end of the values in nums1, including all the zeros in the end. Now the reason we're pointing to the end is because we're going to solve this by looping through the nums1 array backwards. So we're going to start off populating those values which are set to 0, and we're going to populate them with the greatest values between nums1 and nums2. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to compare the values at the end of nums1 to the values at the end of nums2. We're going to see which values are the biggest, and whatever values are the biggest is what we're going to store inside the zeros of the nums1 array. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's start off with a while loop. And we're going to say while I is greater than or equal to 0, and while j is greater than or equal to 0. Sorry guys, it's hard to type while I'm recording. I'm going to compare those values now. So I'm going to say if nums1 of I is greater than or equal to nums2 of j, then I'm going to set the value at nums1 of k equal to nums1 of I. So what did I just do here? I'm comparing those values at the end of the array with each other. And basically, if the value of nums1 is greater, we're going to store that into the end of the nums1 array. But what if the value... Oh, my computer's low battery. Hold on, guys. There we go. All right, so where were we? So if the value at nums1 is greater than the value at nums2, we'll store that into the nums1 array at the end. Otherwise, if the value at nums2 is greater, we'll set that equal to the nums2 value. And that should work, right? Wrong. We also need to decrement the value of k, and we need to decrement the value of I. Because this is a while loop, we're not decrementing them anywhere. So if we don't decrement them, this is going to be an infinite loop and we're stuck. Let me copy this code down here as well. Now basically there's a shortcut. We don't have to do k minus minus and I minus minus on two separate lines. We can just add it here. And now this is going to execute, and right after it executes, this is going to decrement. Now, I'm sure this code on its own is probably enough to get us through a bunch of test cases, so let me just submit it. And as you can see, we passed 40 out of our 59 test cases, which is actually pretty good. Now, let's see which ones we got wrong. Alright, so it's going to show us an example. And of course, this while loop is never going to run if the value of m or n is already 0, because it's going to be -1 when we subtract 1. So basically, what do we do in this edge case? Well, if one of them is 0, we just simply populate the array with the values of the other one. So let's say if nums1 is completely empty, we'll just put all the values in nums2 into nums1 and we'll merge it that way. Same thing for the other way around. If nums2 is completely empty, we'll just leave nums1 as is. So let's do that. So I'll say while I is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0, and then I'll say while j is greater than or equal to 0, and I'll simply copy this code right here. And I'll copy this code right here. So basically, what am I doing? We're going to loop through it, and we're just going to store all the values in the way we normally would. This is just for the edge cases where something is 0, right? So let's submit. And you'll see that we got the right answer. So that's going to wrap up the tutorial. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe.